Good morning and welcome to Webinar Tuesdays. Webinar Tuesday is hosted by the Small Business Development Center in collaboration with the Small Business Administration. My name is Greg Kopach. I am a business counselor here in St. Croix with the Small Business Development Center, and I will be moderating today's session, which will be an economic aid overview for small businesses given by Wayne Huddleston. Wayne's the senior area manager for the SBA here in the Virgin Islands, okay? Also a part of the Puerto Rico/Virgin Islands district. Additionally, we've got Lisa Shamli-Acqui today. Lisa's the outreach and marketing specialist for the SBA here in the Virgin Islands. And in that role, Lisa's responsibilities are providing technical knowledge of the SBA programs. We got outreach, training, and education. Additionally, with partners, strategic allies, and economic development organizations as well. She came to the SBA with 18 years of private sector experience in corporate leadership, management, consulting, and executive coaching. She's worked with clients from Fortune 50 and Forbes Global 2000 organizations, and has developed executives on 3 continents. Lisa holds an MS in Management and Administrative Sciences and a graduate certificate in Professional and Executive Coaching. And today, we welcome her as well as her vast breadth of knowledge, where she resides over in St. Thomas and is an active community volunteer as well. Thank you both for being here, and the floor is yours.
Well, before you guys begin, I want to share a little information with you about the Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center.
Has your business been affected by COVID-19? The Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center is available to assist entrepreneurs and small businesses in the U.S. Virgin Islands. The SBDC is sustained by the University of the Virgin Islands and the U.S. Small Business Administration and collaborates with local agencies to support the small business community. The SBDC is nationally accredited and provides free consulting, business education training, and technical assistance. Attend workshops with subject matter experts from both the public and private sector. From idea generation to exit strategies, the staff at the SBDC is ready to assist you. Now is the time to contact them, so don't wait. Call or email them to find out how they can help your business grow and succeed.
¿Su negocio ha sido afectado por COVID-19? El Centro de Desarrollo de Pequeñas Empresas está disponible para ayudar a los empresarios en las Islas Vírgenes de los Estados Unidos. El SBDC es sostenido por la Universidad de las Islas Vírgenes y la Administración de Pequeñas Empresas de los Estados Unidos para apoyar a la comunidad de negocios pequeños. El SBDC está acreditado a nivel nacional y ofrece consultoría gratuita, educación empresarial y asistencia técnica. Asiste a talleres con expertos en la materia, tanto del sector público como del privado. Desde generaciones de ideas hasta estrategia de salida, el personal del SBDC está listo para ayudarlo. Ahora es el momento de contactarlos si necesita ayuda. Llame o envíe un correo electrónico para averiguar cómo puede ayudar a que su negocio crezca y tenga éxito.
Okay, Wayne and Lisa, you may begin your presentation.
Good morning to all those who are online with us, and thank you to the SBDC for hosting these Webinar Tuesdays with SBA as we seek to bring you up-to-date information about all of the COVID-19 programs that are currently going on and what stage they're at and so on. I will be starting the program and then handing off to our senior area manager, Wayne Huddleston, who will take you through several areas of the agenda. The important thing to note is that because things are changing very quickly, what you need to know is that when in doubt, no matter what you have heard from us today, if it changes tomorrow, when in doubt, the PPP guidance, the official guidance, which can be found on SBA.gov and Treasury.gov, that is the guidance that should make your decisions for you, because that's the official guidance that will be the most updated. All right, as you can see on the agenda, we have 7 different programs that are currently ongoing. Some of these are loans, some of these are grants, and we will be going through and then allowing time at the end for a questions and answers session. So we do ask you to put your questions as you think of them in the chat. And then after that, after we go through the entire presentation, we can do that. So today we'll be, as you can see, we'll be touching on the Paycheck Protection Program, really the forgiveness aspect of it, since that program is now closed. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which continues, the Targeted EIDL Advance and Supplemental Targeted Advance, the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, and the Debt Relief Program. And then you will see, how they all cross over and what the eligibility for one or multiple of these look like. We'll give you some resources, connections, and links that are helpful when you are detailing or searching for information, and then our questions and answers. Next slide. So where are we as at June 1? There we go. So, Paycheck Protection Program ended in terms of new applications on May 30th, 2021. We were very lucky in that 3 of the major lenders in the US territory, in the US Virgin Islands, those being Banco Popular, First Bank, and Oriental Bank, are considered MDIs. And so they were able, even after the program was closed to many of the major lenders throughout the United States, they were able to hold the portals open and continue accepting applications until, until pretty much the very end. And so our population here in the US VI had a little extra time to continue to apply. But that is now closed. The next month will be spent processing those applications that were approved, and then that program will formally be closed unless something else happens in Congress. EIDL applications, EIDL of course standing for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, will be accepted until the end of this year, December 31st, 2021, and we'll go a little bit more into what that program entails. The Targeted Advance, eligible businesses who received, whether it was in 2020, it was $1,000 per employee in the Targeted Advance, and that's gone through several changes, but eligible businesses can receive up to $10,000 in grant funding, but must apply for the EIDL loan. Similarly, the Supplemental Targeted Advance is an extension of that, in which eligible businesses can receive up to $5,000 in grant funding as long as they apply for the EIDL loan. Then we have the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. Applications are still being accepted, and Mr. Huttleson will detail that a little bit more towards, going down into the program. Notification of awards began last week. The Restaurant Revitalization Fund, that portal closed, and awards will be forthcoming as those applications are processed. The Debt Relief Program ends September 30th, 2021. So we still have a few months to go in that. Next slide. All right. So which of these were loan programs or are loan programs, and which of these are payment and grant programs? So the loan programs, the Paycheck Protection Program is definitely a loan program. However, as you know, if you spent over 60% or a minimum of 60% on payroll, up to a maximum of 100% on payroll, which was the intention of the program, that loan can be completely forgivable depending on how you spent it. Debt relief on 7A loans, 504 loans, and micro loans, which are all SBA's guaranteed loans that may have already been in place. There is debt relief on that. And as we heard, that goes until September 30th, 2021. The economic loan, the economic injury disaster loan is also a loan, and you see it kind of crosses over between a loan and a grant. So the loan, we'll go into that in terms of what that loan looks like, but then the targeted idle advance and the supplemental targeted idle advances, those do not have to be, those are grant programs and they do not have to be paid back to SBA, as are the Shuttered Venue Operators Program and the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. Again, those are grant programs. Let's continue. So let's look at a little bit on the forgiveness update. So there, the 3508 program, yes, the application for forgiveness, there are 3 applications, and they were all updated. So when you are on the website, whether it's treasury.gov or sba.gov, you are looking for forms that are updated as at January 1st, 2021. Those are the correct forms unless you are using a lender-specific form from the website of your lender. So the 3508S is an updated simplified forgiveness forms to include PPP loans for up to 150,000. And then in terms of when do you have to apply for forgiveness, by when should you apply for forgiveness, the borrower has 10 months from the time that your PPP funds were exhausted, and SBA will assume, if you do not specify, you choose between the Economic Aid Act allows you to choose a minimum of 8 weeks up to a maximum of 24 weeks as your covered period. Once that covered period is completed, you have up to 10 months from the end of your covered period to apply for forgiveness. If you do not apply for forgiveness within that time, your lender will grant the maximum amount, which was the 24-week covered period. And then 10 months after that, if you have not applied for forgiveness, will let you know that your first payment date is coming up and such is the date. So do not wait until the very end to apply for forgiveness, just that you give yourself some time. And also the forgiveness process, it takes its own, there is a process that can go, from 5 months to, quite a bit longer, depending on reviews and so on. In the PPP, any amount of the loan that is not forgiven will be subject to a 1% fixed interest rate, which is non-compounding, non-adjustable, on the portions that are not forgiven. And that has to be paid back over 2 years. There are no prepayment fees. And once SBA makes a decision on how much has been forgiven, the lender will notify the borrower of that decision, and then payments will start immediately after. And we spoke already, if borrowers do not apply for forgiveness, payments start 10 months after the last day of the covered period. Some borrowers have been choosing not to apply for forgiveness and instead paying back on the loan, and that is fine. If you determined that you really didn't need the loan in the beginning, you just took it, but things, your business was able to rebound quickly, or if you applied for the loan and then found out later that you were ineligible for the loan, then you have the ability to pay back the loan in full to your lender and not apply for forgiveness. But if you just forget to apply for forgiveness, payments will start 10 months after the covered period. In terms of the maturity rate, if the loan was issued after June 5th, 2020, there is automatically a 5-year maturity loan, a 5-year maturity, sorry, I said 2 years earlier, but that's only for if the loans were issued before June 5th, 2020. And even if so, then borrowers can still ask, and as long as it's in writing that the borrower and the lender agrees to extend the maturity from 2 years to 5 years, then that can happen. Next slide. Right, go ahead. There we go. And here are some other good things. The idle advances were deducted from the PPP loan forgiveness payments last year, and that has been reversed. And those idle advances that were deducted were reimbursed by SBA to the lenders. The expenses paid with PPP loan funds are federally tax deductible. Here we would contact VIBIR for details, and but that's a good thing to know. Expanded forgivable expenses for PPP, and those the forgivable expenses were rent or pre-existing mortgage. They were utility payments, and they were expanded to include certain operational costs, PPE costs, and any other COVID-related costs. And there is an area of about 8 different expenses that are permissible if you have not yet submitted your PPP forgiveness application. And those can be found on treasury.gov under the Economic Aid Act. The important thing to note is that no matter how much you are using in terms of forgivable non-payroll expenses, those cannot exceed 40% of the PPP loan. We spoke about the forgiveness application, the simplified 350S for 150 and under, and we spoke about what is, that forgiven PPP loans are not taxable, are not federally taxable. In terms of the economic injury disaster loan, which goes until December 31st, 2020, or until funds are exhausted, again, this is a COVID, a pandemic-related loan. So the use of the funds are restricted to working capital and normal operating expenses that you may be struggling to meet because of the state of your business because of the pandemic. So these are like continuation of healthcare benefits, rent, utilities, and fixed debt payments. The terms for businesses, small businesses, 3.75, which is fixed, and 2.75 for nonprofits. The maturity is 30 years. There's no prepayment penalty. If you decide the business rebounds and you want to pay off the entire loan, there's no prepayment penalty. And loans over $25,000 secured by UCC filing, and that is from the loan proceeds. The eligibilities: qualified small businesses, co-ops, agricultural enterprises, all with 500 or fewer employees. And if you exceed that, then you have to go to the NAICS codes and make sure that you are still defined as a small business per SBA.gov size standards and private nonprofits. Next slide. All right, so the loan limit, last year the loan limit was $150,000, and that loan limit has been increased up to $500,000 maximum. To request an increase, you go to your portal if you've already had the loan and you utilize the request more funds option in the portal. For loans taken in 2020, the first payment is due 24 months, and that too is an extension from the date of the loan. And for loans taken in 2021, the first payment is due 18 months from the date of the note. Next slide. And this is where I turn it over to Wayne Huddleston, who will take you through the remainder of the program. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Lisa, for taking us through the beginning of the presentation there. That was good information. I'm going to take us through the rest. I'm going to focus on targeted idle advance and then some of the other programs that we have. And then, as Lisa mentioned, we're going to leave plenty of time to answer any questions you have at the end. So some of you, especially those who applied for the economic injury disaster loan, during the targeted idle advance, may recall that there was an amount of funds that were eligible to small businesses, many of which were unable to take advantage of it because those funds ran out, and then it took quite a while for Congress to reauthorize those funds. However, they are now available again up to $15,000 in grant funding. So this would be funding that would not be part of the loan. It would not necessarily need to be paid back, but it would be intended to reach businesses who were declined because funds had run out, and they will be contacted for that. So you can't, a few things to know, you still can be declined by an economic injury disaster loan and not be approved to receive the loan and still get the grant. And you can refuse a loan. So maybe you're approved for the loan, but you just don't want it. You can still get the grant and you still don't have to pay those funds back. And you do not have to submit any additional paperwork and you can still get the grant. You just submit the paperwork that you normally do through our portal. Under the Economic Aid Act, this is only for businesses that have applied for EIDL, are in a low-income community, have suffered greater than 30% economic loss, and have fewer than 300 employees. If that applies to you, then you will receive an email from SBA saying that you possibly meet the qualifications for this grant. And it can be used to balance out the previous EIDL advance to a full 10,000 if you did not receive that full amount. Or if you just didn't receive it because of the lack of funding that had run out last year before Congress reauthorized that amount. As I mentioned, you'll receive an email for it. Some things you'll have to submit are your 2019 federal return, your EIN. It must match what was on the application with your original economic injury disaster loan. You must show your monthly gross receipts for 2019 and 20. Confirmation that the information in the original application is still accurate. And you may be eligible or may be required to sign a 4506T to obtain tax transcripts. We will then at SBA, we have someone who goes over to IRB and pulls those tax transcripts for you from them to complete your application. There's only one submission that can be made. You cannot get multiple targeted EIDL advances. Carefully review your bank information. If you make a mistake in the process some way and we cannot, or SBA cannot deposit those funds into your account, it creates a big slow up, a lot of pain that you don't have to deal with. So highly encourage you to make sure everything is accurate in the beginning, because when there are inaccuracies, it goes into another kind of round of reviews and it just takes some time to get through it. But if you're approved, those funds will be automatically put into the account that was indicated in your application. And if you're declined, you will get an email. And if you want a reevaluation of that decision, you can email targeted advance reevaluation at sba.gov. There's also something called the Supplemental Targeted Advance, very similar to the Target Advance. It just provides a supplemental amount, an additional 5,000 that could be received on top of the 10,000. SBA will reach out to you if you may qualify for this. You will receive an email. You'll be asked to submit additional information, and if that amount is approved, you will receive that into your bank account, and if it's declined, it's the same process as the other one. So the criteria for that is just a little bit different, whereas in the last one, you had to be in a low-income community. This one, you also have to be in a low-income community, but you have to show that you suffered greater than a 50% loss, whereas to get the regular EIDL advance, you just have to show a 30% loss. You must show a 50% loss, and you must have 10 or fewer employees, not less than 300. A question often that comes up here in the Virgin Islands is, am I in a low-income community? Isn't all of the Virgin Islands a low-income community? And that's not the case. We are using US Census data, and that data is all loaded up into this map here, SBA EIDL policy map. You can click on that map, you can click on your island, and you can see the exact areas that apply and can be designated as a low-income community. So make sure you comply, or make sure you review that before you pull together the information. I'm going to give a quick update on the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant. There's a lot of slides in here for this. This slide deck comes from our national office. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because it doesn't apply to very many here in the Virgin Islands. It does apply to a few, so I'm going to cover it, but I'm going to spend more time on some other areas. But the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant is a grant provided to live venue operators, theater producers, live performing arts organizations, zoos or museums, talent representatives, and so forth. Must have been in operation prior to February 29th. You apply for this grant, unlike the other programs where you apply through SBA's website, you must first be sure that you are registered in the System for Award Management. This is a federal grant that operates like other federal grants out there. If you're familiar with them, you must be in the System for Award Management, and then you can apply, and you can apply through our site, but you have to be in SAM first, unlike the other ones. Your potential grant amount will be the lesser of 10 million, or if in operation on January 2019, 45% of the gross earned revenue, or if you began after operation or began operation after January 1st, 2019, the average monthly gross revenue full month in operation during 2019 multiplied times 6. If you already applied, make sure you review the post-application frequently asked questions. There's a lot of good information on there. If approved, you will receive an email from SBA, and then awards will be dispersed utilizing a tiered approach, which I'll cover here. There's a priority during the first 14 days for those entities that suffer greater 90% loss. The second 14 days, 70% greater. And then 28 days after the first and second priority disbursements are made, they're going to go up to 25% or greater, suffered a loss of 25% or greater in earned revenue. So if you want additional information on this program, as I said, it doesn't apply to a lot of people here in the Virgin Islands, but if you are one of the few that it does, you can get a lot more information on our website at sba.gov. You can contact our Disaster Customer Service Center at 1-800-659-2955. Or you can just reach out to us here in the territory. We'll point you in the right direction. I do want to talk a little bit more about the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. There were a good number of restaurants and bakeries and food trucks and others here in the territory that did apply for this program. There was a great demand for this all across the country. Just in the first 2 weeks, over 300,000 applications were received through the portal, representing over $75 billion in requested funds. Congress only approved $28 billion, so almost 3 times the amount in just the first 2 weeks were requested through the portal. That was 3 times what was approved. Emergency relief has been provided, more than 63,000 already, and $15 billion worth of funds will be distributed over the coming weeks. So as this slide says, over 300,000 were received over the first 2 weeks. Over 145,000 were received just in the first 2 days of the program. If you applied for this and you did not get your application in within the first 48 hours, don't be surprised if you haven't received anything as of yet. There are thousands of applicants that are being approved every day, but they're working through a huge volume right now. There are dozens of recipients here in the Virgin Islands who have already received Restaurant Revitalization Fund grant relief, but there may be some that will be unable to, even though if you got your application in. You know, as I mentioned, 75 billion was requested, only 28 billion was approved by Congress. We cannot provide funding beyond what Congress and the President allow. So we are hoping that they are beginning to reconsider that and look at that program and see if there's going to be an increase. And anyone who applied, your position in the queue remains, and we'll continue processing as we go forward. There's also a program I'm going to touch upon briefly called debt relief. Any of you who have a current 7A loan or 504 loan or a micro loan that is guaranteed by SBA should have already received an email from your lender. There's nothing you need to do for this program. All my information tells me that all the lenders have identified the businesses in the territory that qualify for that debt relief and have sent those notifications. But this is just basic information about it, where it shows that SBA was providing payments on those loans on behalf of those borrowers. If you qualify, you should have already received an email, didn't have to do anything. We were just told you didn't have to make the payments during those times. If you, for some reason, believe that you should have been receiving payments because you had one of these loans and you did not get anything about debt relief, then you should contact your lender immediately and ask about it. I've not heard anyone who had such an issue, but you never know. So I keep mentioning it each time. So this is a cross-reference eligibility chart. Some of these programs impact one another. For instance, in fact, I don't know why they don't show the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. So what I'm going to talk to you about here is Restaurant Revitalization Fund, because you can't see this on this slide. The one thing that I will mention is if you receive an approval for a Restaurant Revitalization Fund grant, any funds that you received under PPP will be deducted from that amount. So if you're approved for a total of 20,000 and you received 5,000 under PPP, your total amount under Restaurant Revitalization Fund will be 15,000. As you can see here, there are some other cross impacts. You can get both an EIDL loan and a PPP loan, but you just can't use them for the same purposes. But you can get both. And if you're getting a Shuttered Venues Operators Grant, you cannot receive a PPP loan after the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. But that's not an issue for most people because PPP is now closed. So local resources going forward, as we frequently mention, you do not have to wait for one of these presentations to get information on SBA programs. You can always reach out to us or follow us online. A lot of fantastic information is found on our website. You can get almost all your questions answered through there if you visit it. You can also reach out to Lisa or I. Our cell phone numbers are there and our office numbers are there. I highly encourage you, if you need to reach us for some reason, please email us. It is the better way to get in contact. Oftentimes we cannot answer our phone immediately. And even if we can, it really helps if we have your email address that we can forward you some good information. So if you need something, contact us at the email. However, highly encourage you to take advantage of our resource partners, the SBDC, of course. They have paid staff that are briefed and knowledgeable about these programs and can sit down with you one-on-one and give you some in-depth help with your business and give you advice and direction on how to move forward, where we're not necessarily authorized to give that level of assistance and help. And then here is a link to, or a page that gives links to all of these programs. You should always read the information on the site before you start making calls, or even before you call the 1-800 numbers or us or anything. Almost every time your questions can be answered through these links. The Restaurant Revitalization Fund program has them both in English and in Spanish. But if you have questions about PPP, the forgiveness process, how it works, how to work with your lender, the restaurant program, target advance, or any of those, just visit the link on our site. They're very well put together. A lot of great information is on that site, so you can find it there. But we're here to answer your questions live. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in chat. I'll check in on that, but I believe you can also unmute yourself and ask any question about any of the programs that we covered today or any SBA program.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. That was some good information that you and Lisa shared with us. There were a couple of questions that were put in the chat that Lisa has answered. If anybody in the audience has a question that they would like to ask, if they could raise their hand and we will acknowledge you and open your mic. But while we're waiting for you to do that, my name is Mary Jo Williams. I'm the Network Training Coordinator for the Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center. And I want to bring to your attention some of the upcoming events that we have coming. At 12 o'clock today, we have the first of our three-part series of Grow with Google. And the one at 12 o'clock is Make Your Website Work for You. And that's in English. And we'll have the same webinar at 6 p.m. in Spanish. And then tomorrow, we have Get Your Local Business on Google Search and Maps at 12 noon. And then tomorrow evening at 6 p.m., we have the same webinar in Spanish. And then on Thursday, we have the third webinar, which is Use YouTube to grow your business at 12 noon in English and again at 6 p.m. in Spanish. And there are some incentives for businesses that attend all 3 of the webinar series. There'll be some Google Bucks and there'll be an opportunity to win gift certificates from Amazon. So please register, sign up, and we look forward to seeing you in those venues this afternoon. So do we have any questions for Wayne or Lisa?
Hi guys, yeah, it's Steve Clayton. I've gotten a couple or 3 different inquiries, primarily regarding the EIDL loan from folks who've submitted their application. It's been a while. You know, today is usually an expectation they have as to when to get an answer on anything. And basically what I've had to tell them, obviously, is that I don't have access to any system that allows me to determine what the loan status is. I refer them to the 800 number. I also refer them to the ability to set up, is it the CAFS system? Is that correct?
There is something called a capital access financial system, but I don't see why they should be in there, but.
Okay,
go
well,
ahead.
it's just that I've seen online that on the SBA site that if one has a question regarding their loan status, if they create an account in that system, they will be able to see the status of any loan that they have active in process with SBA. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, those 2 bits of advice for them. Number 1, call the customer service 800 line. Number 2, if they haven't done so, and again, based upon what I've seen on the SBA side, set up an account using the CAFS system, and they'll be able to see what the status of their loan is. I'm not sure, is there anything else I should be advising them?
No, I think that's it. And honestly, I had not even seen that it's posted on our site anywhere that borrowers can set up an account in a CAF system and see the see how their loan is doing. I'm unfamiliar with that. So
Okay.
if you do see that on an SBA site, if you could share it with me, that way I can make sure I'm aware of this as well, because I did not even know that.
I shall do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I know it's frustrating for a lot of people out there. It does take some time. They have a lot that they're going through right now. I tell people if it hasn't been at least 3 weeks, you know, don't expect anything. But beyond that, they can, you know, I know it's frustrating, but they can call the 800 number, but they can also email as well. And then they can get a written response within typically a few days on where their application is. Oftentimes, when people call me and they're frustrated, they've already been receiving these responses, and then they're just not providing the information. So someone may say, yeah, this part of the application was incomplete, please submit. And then it's kicked over in a queue and it's not touched until that person submits that information. So it's important that they do that and respond.
Yeah, I agree. I have had a couple where I've done essentially a conference call, calling the 800 number, because they were, you know, they were just not used to dealing with that kind of a process. And as it turned out, number one, they were very responsive. I mean, the hold time was not long at all, just a few minutes before somebody came online who could help. Long story short, they'd been sent, along with the notification of rejection, a laundry list of the reasons why it was rejected, all of which were easily solvable with documentation. So it was just, I think with some of the people that we deal with, they're just not used to it. It's not something that that they do every day. So, you know, making them familiar with the process and, you know, helping point them in the right direction, I think is the best, you know, the best advice I've been able to give anyway.
Right. Well, I appreciate you helping out there.
Thank you, Steve. And just in case anyone is thinking, so what is this number and what is this email? The number, if you have an EIDL loan, is 1-800-659-2955. Wayne, I said that from memory, but is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and the email is disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. Was that correct as well?
Correct.
Okay, so disaster customer service. So that is it. And just remember, every time, that it's the same pool of resources that are dealing with all of the loan applications, including the RRF, which they now have to process, including the second round and first round PPP loans, which just closed. So it's the same pool of resources. So I think that, once you have an ID confirmation, an SBA confirmation that your application has been received, in the initial days, give it at least 3 weeks before you follow up.
That's right.
And by the way, I just dropped in the chat the link to the website, the SBA website for the CAFS account setup.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wayne, this is Greg. I might just add my 2 cents for what it's worth to both the counselors out there and to the folks on the call who may have an application in. Couple things. Number one, a lot of the challenge that we are having is simply in late emails and having to go back and put a timeline on the SBA emails. One of the things that I found to be helpful when working with a client is segregate out every single SBA.gov email. Okay, that way you're dealing with an official set of emails. A lot of times you will have different idle numbers come up, different subjects come up. Very important simply to put these things in order. And it goes without saying that check these things in the morning at least once and in the afternoon at least once. I would be kidding if I told you that I didn't wake up and start my work week this week with an email from a March SBA correspondence to apply for a supplemental advance. It is June 1 today. So we can make it work a little better by checking. The other thing is, I tell folks, and this has been a little bit helpful too, is when you get correspondence from the SBA, having been a former federal worker myself, I advise them to read it twice and answer it once. It seems pretty basic information, but it just moves the system along. Other than that, I don't have an answer for all the patience that is required of us right now. But on the SBDC side, at least we can, get this SBA correspondence in order with our clients and just work through them individually. That's the only thing I know how to do on this stuff. Call us if you have a question, but please stay on top of the SBA emails. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we got about 15 minutes. If anyone has any other questions or comments or anything out there.
Yeah, it
And
looks kind of quiet.
Right, I'll mention next week, we do have another presentation every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. We have SBA coming on to cover one topic. Next week, it's going to be, I believe, HubZone. Is that correct, Mary Jo? Or is it 8A, something with government contracting?
That's HubZone.
HubZone. We'll be covering the HubZone program, which can apply to just about any business in the Virgin Islands who's interested in pursuing government contracting. The entire territory is considered a HubZone, and it's a very powerful designation. Our colleague in Puerto Rico Eduardo, a business opportunity specialist, providing more in-depth information on that program and how to make sure you are certified if you wish to take advantage of it.
But I had another question, Wayne.
Yes.
Someone asked about grants for startups.
Mhm.
Does SBA offer grants for startups?
No.
It's pretty straightforward. Okay.
Yep.
But in terms of grants, people can go to grants.gov to see whatever grants the federal government does make available to businesses, but generally they're not grants for startup businesses.
Correct. Yep. There's not a program I'm aware of, at least a legitimate program through the federal government that provides grants directly to people who wish to start up a business. There are some grants available to businesses that are trying to grow some emerging technology that specifically addresses a need of a federal agency out there through our SBIR program, but grants to start a business, especially a traditional business, are just not available through the federal government.
Mary Jo, but all is not lost. I mean, there are tremendous resources available at SBA.gov for startup businesses in terms of how to, how to do the business plan, how to launch it, and then how to quickly get to the point where you are able to apply to a lender for funding. And maybe use one of the SBA guaranteed, the microloans, the 7A, that kind of thing. So there is a whole host of information on SBA.gov specific to starting a business that entrepreneurs thinking of starting a business, especially during this pandemic time, can have access to, easy access to, and it's excellent training.
And there's also on the SBA website, the e-learning center, where there's some short courses.
Yep.
Yes, and if you're a woman entrepreneur, there is the ASCENT, the ASCENT website as well. So there's tons of, really, really good, strong resources that are SBA approved. So, it's good information you're getting. And then we always encourage our small businesses or businesses that want to start up to become clients of VI SBDC. You guys are not touting your own horn enough because you have the, financial counselors and technical counselors who are able to take startups through the mechanics of making sure that they don't fail. And having the best possibility of success. So it's just simply, becoming a client of SBDC, and those technical resources are at your disposal at no cost.
There's also SCORE as well. We've got Steve online. There's and they've got a good partnership with SCORE chapter in Florida as well. So if you just want a mentor to help you in your industry, to help you understand it, understand some pitfalls and avoid some mistakes, they have plenty of coaches and mentors that are there able to help there as well.
Okay, great. So thank you all for joining us today, Wayne and Lisa from SBA, and on behalf of our state director, Mr. Ted Gutierrez, and for the SBDC, our staff on St. Croix, our staff on St. Thomas. We want to thank you all for joining us today, and hopefully we will see you this afternoon for the Google workshops. And if not, we'll see you next week, Tuesday, when SBA presents on the Hub Zone program. Thank you all very much, and do have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Have a good day.